like the way that it's happening now online is definitely, it feels very different than, I'm not saying that like people have invented like being public figures or semi-public figures. I'm just saying that with the internet and social media specifically, it feels differently and it looks differently. But I find that very rarely do people have honest conversations about how it makes them feel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And because I cannot imagine, for example, like being your, you know, like your inbox, like the amount of people who are just like, Cleo, give me wisdom, or give me a part of yourself, or fix my life, or the entitlement to that. It's a very beautiful and lucky, and like I am grateful that people care about our ideas and they care about our work, you know, like I don't take that for granted. But I think that really talking about the other side of how it drains you, or how you can also start to feel very differently about that pressure, is something that's also really important to discuss.
Well, or to just look at it like any other relationship. Like the health of every relationship is dependent on, if you had to boil it down to one thing, it would be boundaries, you know? And so the being online or having a relationship with a community, you know, is a relationship nonetheless, meaning that can only thrive if there are boundaries. And so a lot of, I feel like what you and I discuss a lot is, you know, what are the boundaries that feel right? And as you know, with anyone, most of the time when you need a boundary, the other person, being, thing, whatever, in no way wants the same motherfucking boundary as you. No, like it's never happened to me. Like I have never had that conversation with my mom or any other family member or a work person, you know, where I had to sit down and say, I really need this. This boundary is really important to me. And there hasn't been something, because people are either, I don't want that, you know, like that's not what I'm interested in. And that's not how I would like this to be. And I don't care about what you need in order for this to be. Or they have a moment of kind of this shame that's like feeling a little weird that they didn't know that you were uncomfortable, that they were causing harm unintendedly or whatever. And it's sticky, you know what I mean? And so, you know, I can't tell you how many times I'll have someone like kind of, whether it's like DM me or like something, and they'll say just something kind of like, not like rude, but they'll be kind of like, you should be da 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 da. And it's like literally like something that's like so out of line, you know? And like every now and again, I'll respond. And the amount of times people are like, oh, I really didn't think you would respond to this. and I always remember thinking like, you know, it's not that I want to engage, but what I do want to do is instill the boundary that, you know, you have to remember that there's a human being on the other side of this device. And like, you know, putting my beating heart in the forefront of all of my interactions is a critical boundary for me, you know, so that it's not, you know, whether it's a person you might hold on a pedestal or a person you may think is, you know, not human because you think they're dumb and hate their work or whatever it might be. But like what we want is to have the full extent of our humanity acknowledged. You know, you want to be able to be, you know, seen as a person. And that is like, you know, basically my first and foremost boundary. But when it comes to the community, it's like, it's really like any other relationship. It's like, what are the boundaries you need? You know, how much of your home life are you willing to share? How much of your friend life are you willing to open up to without losing the intimacy? And, you know, it requires kind of this constant check-in with yourself, because, you know, you want to like know that you're living a life. You know, my friend, you know, Stevie, she's my best girlfriend from New Orleans. And she wrote this thing the other day online. She was like, I'd rather be free than wear a crown on the internet. And I was like, it's so true. You know, so much of what you, all of us, and I don't care if you have 10 or 20 followers or 2 million or whatever it could be. It's about, you know, making sure you're living a life, because that is like the indicator of like how to find your joy or move through the toughest, you know, in the toughest moments of your life. The internet is probably the worst place on earth for you.
I mean, so much that you just said. I'm just finding that I'm nodding, or I'm like, oh my, like, thank you for saying that. Because, like, the thing about boundaries, I think for me, is that, especially for us as Black women, boundaries are useful in two ways. One, it is the number one way to find out who doesn't respect you. It's like, it doesn't matter what the boundary is. Like, it's like, say the most outlandish one or the most simple one you want. The way that people react that's a very good barometer for, like, is this person in my corner or not? And do they respect me or not?
And are they even capable, Like, I mean, so much of what we find in, friendships over time is what people are capable of.